Well, welcome to the introduction to ArcGIS Hub. I'm Brenda Wolf. I'm a product manager for ArcGIS Hub. My colleague
Alan Cassidy, product manager on the ArcGIS Hub as well.
So this is the introduction to Hub. So we'll start out with sort of some conceptual material like Hub, what is it, what's it all about, where did it come from, and then show some examples how you can get started and go into more of the product details as we go along. So welcome. All right, just to start off, kind of the impetus behind ArcGIS Hub is very aspirational and inspirational. It starts with the smart communities kind of idea or smart cities kind of idea where everyone wants their community to be better, safer, healthier, more vibrant. And then how do you get there? In our work with clients, we found that they use this concept of an initiative, or you might call it a project or a campaign, but these initiatives are how they're actually going to make communities better. Things like reducing homelessness, improving earthquake preparedness, which is relevant this week. Very relevant this week, and so on. So these are our initiatives, and if you're a government, which most of you are, these are big challenges facing the community, and so it's really helpful if you can bring others in to help. So other levels of government, nonprofits who can help, universities, the business community, whoever can help you tackle these initiatives, the more the better, right? Same for nonprofits. Nonprofits have initiatives that they use to improve the community, and they need to bring together parties in the community to help them. Same with universities. Universities are like little cities, and they have initiatives, and they also are a good partner for nonprofits and governments trying to achieve these initiatives. So how do you bring these people together, right? And no matter, by the way, we had some folks who are in the other category. So if you're your organization, I assume you're trying to bring folks together. And you want to do this because you're trying to get people to be informed, on board, participate in your initiative or your campaign or your project, to contribute data. That's a big thing. Often the data you need for your initiative isn't in your own organization, it's in the hands of others. So how do you find a platform for collaboration? And then to align efforts and tasks and actual coordination around these initiatives. So here's another mental picture we have in our mind when we think about an initiative. For any initiative or campaign or project, you usually have a small number of staff. Usually there's a small team within your organization charged with making things happen. And often you need to communicate with the public, the general public. And then there's a small group of the public that might be eager to help you with these initiatives. And there's also a group of what we call collaborators, potential collaborators out there. So NGOs, universities, other levels of government who could really roll up their sleeves and help you and create initiative content. So that's where we use this idea of the initiative is really a focusing function. It brings people into alignment, gives them a reason to share data and contribute. And so that's what we think of. The other thing about an initiative is that it pulls from not only the staff from different departments typically, but also your data and content from your systems. So for all of you that have been in the trenches with your GIS systems of record, initiatives really leverage all the work you've been doing and all those applications you've been creating. So that's the good news. So when we're looking at ArcGIS Hub, we have this whole big picture in mind, and we want to create a framework to help with this whole big vision. And so that's where we came up with ArcGIS Hub. It's an easy to configure cloud platform that organizes your people, your data, your applications, your engagement tools around a particular goal. And it could be an initiative or project, et cetera. So what's in the box? What is actually ArcGIS Hub? So ArcGIS Hub contains a framework for initiatives, and we'll get into that a little bit later. And those initiatives help you organize your contents and your content and applications, as well as we actually provide some applications for certain initiatives. They also come with something called sites or websites that'll let you communicate with both internally or with the public about your initiative. And if you're familiar with enterprise sites, ArcGIS Hub also has that same capability in online. So there's an equivalency there. ArcGIS Hub also comes with this notion of teams, because you want to organize people to make your initiatives happen. And teams are made more valuable when you can bring in those outside contributors to what you're trying to do. So ArcGIS Hub includes what we call community identities, so that anyone in the community can have a login to your hub and be part of your process and contribute, so they get an ID. And that means that you can also organize them into teams. And when somebody in the community has an identity, they can do things like follow your initiative or subscribe to be notified. They can also provide feedback with an identity and attend events. There's an events system in Hub. So if you're familiar with Eventbrite or some of those that allows you to create an event, Hub has that same thing. And you can schedule events and actually bring people together. And then we want to focus on tracking performance. So how well is your initiative performing? How well are you engaging the public or your audience that you need to reach? And just how well are things going? So there's the notion of dashboarding and measurement. So that's kind of Hub in a nutshell. But that's a lot of pieces and a lofty vision. But where do you start? You know, we can be very pragmatic about how we get going here. So there's a typical pathway that we find that people are on, kind of a typical evolution. And one is that usually somewhere in your organization, there's a website communicating maybe it's policy or what you're trying to do, some big goal, and there's maybe some ad hoc data sharing. And then we find people move up to doing formalized data sharing in the form of open data, and there might be some ad hoc citizen engagement there. And that kind of area, that first phase, can easily be addressed with what most of you already have now, which is the basic level of ArcGIS Hub. So ArcGIS Hub is included with ArcGIS Online. So I assume many of you have ArcGIS Online. You already have the basic license for this. And that includes the ability to create sites and including open data sites if you want. And we have seen over the years, many customers do this. And with the recent changes at the end of June, with the release of ArcGIS Online, we made it even easier to get started. There used to be some things you had to set to make this appear, but we've done away with those. So now if you have a publisher, if you're a publisher level role, and you have access to this. So if you go into ArcGIS Online and click the app switcher, you should see a tile for Hub. And another change is that there's no need to create an open data group. So it used to be to activate this, you needed to put content or create an open data group and put content in it. That's no longer the case. You can keep your data perfectly private and not share it in an open data group. So let's just get started and show what that looks like. When you click that tile, you'll come into something called the Hub Overview where you can start creating sites. So let's switch over and do that. Let me find my, sorry guys. And so if I go into, this is an organization that I belong to that just has the basic level of ArcGIS Hub. And again, if I go to the application switcher, click Hub, I will land on that overview screen. And then the first thing I can do is create a new site just to get started, give it a name, my first site, very creative. And now it's creating a site, and it will give me, it'll come back with a default or a blank site template that I can configure here. Ta-da! And so now it's put me in what we call the site editor. And I happen to have a logo and some other things in my organization that it's pulled through for me. But this is a completely configurable website environment. So right off the bat, this is, and I'll scroll down here a little bit so you can see some of the content, and it's placeholder content that you can change. So for example, if I don't like this image, I can do things like enter a link for an image or browse and add my own background. So I'll quickly browse. Screenshots, let's put some oranges in there since we're from Redlands. And I don't need to know any HTML or CSS to be able to create a site. So if I want to kind of change change the text color, which I don't want to do, actually. If I want to change the background color, I can kind of change the tone of this, just with you become a designer on the fly, right? I can do things like make this, maybe I want a fixed background, or I can do things like this fancy parallax scroll. I don't know if you noticed that. So there's a lot of things I can do without even being knowing any HTML or CSS. The other thing I can do is use these sites to share my content both internally and or with the public. So I'm going to go ahead and go back to our gallery. So this is a gallery of cards we have for helping you design your site. I might add a new row here. And then I'm going to put a gallery in that row because I want to have a gallery of applications. And I'm going to select it. I can either have this gallery dynamically generate, like point it to a group and have the content just come in, or I can manually configure it and add content. So I'm going to add some content. I have some great applications. So I have they're really great. I have great app number 1 and another great app and all these wonderful applications. So I'm going to select my applications, and it's pointing at the items in my ArcGIS Online organization and pulling in the description for them and their image, thumbnail, and I can do things like style these, like I want rounded corners with a drop shadow, and there, I've made a nice looking page that highlights content I already have, and I didn't have to do any programming at all. If I want to change the description, it's got a rich text editor, and I can put my text here. Just like that, I can change the content in my site and save it. So that's what you can all, I encourage you all to go try, is to create your very first site and just start playing and experimenting with that right off the bat. So some examples of this, these sites are used to share data. A common use is, this is an example from Douglas County, their hub, where they're sharing popular data sets. They have categories for their data, so it's easy for both internal staff to use this, as well as the public. Maryland's done another nice job with categorizing their data, creating categories of interest, and doing a really nice categorization. So it's a way to free the data and let everybody share it. So, encourage you to create your first site. So that's kind of where people start, is I'm going to create a site, maybe do some open data, but we encourage you to go a little step further, which is to put a narrative around it and organize your content around a particular initiative. So organizing your data, your apps, and then even thinking about how do you organize a team around that, and maybe some actions around initiatives. So really just initiative thinking. And an example of this, and why we're doing this actually, is so many times we see that there are websites that have like an informational site that an executive may have put out about a goal they have that they're trying to achieve. And then somewhere in the organization, there's all this wonderful GIS content, applications, and data. And there's just this gap in between. And so what we're encouraging people to do is to try to bridge that gap, to make really data-driven initiatives and inform, like close this gap of the executives understanding what you can do. So that's the idea behind initiative thinking. So at the conference, we had Washington, D.C. speak at the Hub Customer SIG, and they went along this path. So I'm going to relay their journey of how they progressed along this. So they started with starting with open data, sharing their data out, and they created an open data site. And if I go into the site, I can search for all of their data, and of course they have a nice catalog. All of their data is here. But they also saw that, hey, we can actually create a narrative around our content that makes it more informative and just explains why we're doing what they're doing. So this week, Eric shared this one about their aerial imagery. And instead of just putting out aerial imagery, he's done a nice job of explaining why they're doing this, what it's about, how it can be used. So it just makes it a much more immersive experience. for people trying to use it. And they've got some before and after comparisons. So it's just really nice what you can do with some of these sites if you get creative. And it makes the data much more engaging rather than just being data. So I encourage you to do that. Then they started thinking, okay, well, that's good, but we also have these initiatives. So they've gone even further and done initiative thinking, and they have something called a urban wood reuse initiative, where they cut down they have historic trees growing, and sometimes they need to be cut down. So rather than just making them all into wood chips, they've transformed those into products like stools for schools. And they encourage schools to call in and order their products, and they show how they do that. So they might order a bench, things like that. So you can actually order your product here, and it tells you how to get started. They've incorporated GIS in a light way, in that they're saying, hey, we have 3 open requests, 1 in progress, 4 complete, and you can see where those are. And if you're excited by this initiative, you can follow it. So they're starting to do more engagement around this, which leads us kind of to the next area, which is organizing your content toward a particular goal, and then how do you engage the community? So how do you get the community to maybe contribute data, or attend events, or better yet, create applications for you and contribute on a regular basis? And that's where a lot of the other capabilities we talked about in Hub come into play. So this idea of initiatives and community engagement really is showcased in the premium offering, which includes an initiative framework, community identities, the events system, the ability to create multiple teams, to provide feedback, and to have followers like we saw on the DC site. And there are several examples of this. We're seeing more and more people create these experiences. And I just wanted to show you kind of what the nature of those are in terms of a website. So this is an example website. And you can see, rather than just being an open data type of site, which is good, it's actually encouraging the community to do something, like adopt an open space. And another way you can tell if somebody has a premium site is that they have this little follow button, meaning anyone in the community can sign up to follow this initiative, because we give, and when they do, they click that, they can create an account. So they are creating an ArcGIS account in the system, and we'll talk about how that works in a second. So this is one, and it talks about how people can make a difference, click to get involved or sign up. It's got progress measurement. We talked about dashboards and measuring how well you're doing. It talks about how people can get involved, and then they can, presents how things are going, right? It uses a dashboard for that. And the other thing this site does is if I sign in, actually some of the volunteers will actually get to see more content. So if I were a member of the volunteer team, when I sign in, I would see a new set of applications just for me. So it's another part of Hub. And then they have an event here, and this is using the event system in ArcGIS Hub to bring people together. And this is really easy to configure. If you say new event, you can add your photo, add your event description, and it publishes a really nice looking page for you. And what's nice here is that people can share these events, or it's pointing them back to the initiative that they can follow. So it's getting that engagement rolling. So that's an example of the use of engagement in a premium application. So that Sunnyshire one is an example of a custom initiative. It's, hey, our community has this unique goal that we're trying to achieve, and so they've created that from scratch. So we have a couple of ways that you can think of your initiatives. Creating them from scratch, where you're bringing together your own content and your own site and your own messaging, or there are a lot of initiatives that are very common, like creating more affordable housing, or trying to stimulate economic activity, trying to prevent vector-borne disease. And in that case, we have ready-to-use templates. And so I'm going to hand that over to my colleague, Alan, who is focused on the initiative templates, and let him share what we have there.
Cool. Thanks, Brenda. So yeah, some really great examples of what's possible easily using the create from scratch process. I think the majority of those were that model. But let's take a look at some of our ready-to-use initiative templates. So first, so what are they? Our ready-to-use initiative templates are where we sort of carefully craft our series of what are sort of the best aspects of ArcGIS, the ArcGIS Hub, our field solutions, and how can we bundle those together around a particular area of interest, a topic, a policy need, or a need in the community that's top of mind, and how do we package those together to give you all a starter kit to execute your own strategy around that particular area. So here you can see in the image is our initiative template gallery, and then you can see the current ready-to-use initiative templates here that are available to any ArcGIS Hub premium user. Think of these as they're a bundle of capabilities. They're also really constructed because the Hub is a very easily used kind of agile product where you can take elements of these and use them within create your own initiative, or use pieces of the various templates we have to focus on a very different topic. So you can see the ones we have here. One of our newer ones that I'll show is encourage project feedback. We have grow your local economy, increase community pride, that are more focused on economic development. It would resonate with the economic development team or community planning team typically. Performance management, so communicating out how you're performing around various areas around the city, healthy communities, safety, service levels, and things like that. And then you can see some of the others there. So let's go ahead and take a look at encourage project feedback, one of our newer ones. So I'm going to go over and switch here. All right, so now I'm over, like you saw, in the initiative gallery, and this is one of our newer initiative templates. And the goal of this one we're excited about this one, is really gaining insight from constituents, citizens, trusted collaborators around your various projects. And this one, in addition to the general use of around any project, this one actually has a very cool, it's our first integration with the ArcGIS Urban product. So it's closely aligned to use alongside ArcGIS Urban, where you're looking at redeveloping a waterfront or redeveloping or working on any kind of infrastructure project or urban project, and you want to get feedback on it. So you can easily go from urban into the ArcGIS Hub and make this public, gaining insight on your particular project. So let's take a look here. If I was to click on preview, you go to what we refer to as the activation or the initiative editor page for our ready-to-use templates. You can see in this one, we've got one main website page that's kind of the primary experience that can be edited in the site editor like Brenda showed. And then it really has one survey integrated into it. So this is a powerful one, and it's sort of in its simplicity and just the reality that many of you all or your colleagues are working on projects. I mean, it's such a common thing. We're excited about this particular one. So if I click on the site, you can begin to see what this looks like. So imagine getting in edit mode here, changing it, branding it like you need, embedding your web scenes or projects or 2D maps in it, and then communicating out and using the survey and the urban commenting capabilities to gain feedback. So if we scroll down the site and take a look, just communicating out, cueing the user really at the start, the hub user, to use specific sections in certain ways. So introducing the project, highlighting major project milestones, again, all easily editable where you can add and subtract these as needed. Sharing project goals, easily embedding a video. Oftentimes there's a video of what the future will look like at a particular project. And then here's where things get more interesting. So you can see here we've got a scene embedded from ArcGIS Urban, where as the urban product comes with the ability to get comments from the community. So imagine dropping a pin or making a comment on that map and getting that inside the hub or really urban beginning feedback from the community and allowing for a pretty engaging, immersive experience around understanding what the future of your community would look like in this particular area. And then common things like a project gallery. And then you can see here where we have embedded survey 1, 2, 3. So you can see it's branded alongside of it, and it's very easy to embed surveys within hub initiatives. It's a very common pattern. And then more aspects of the site like projects, an additional project timeline. You can see our events system embedded in there. There's oftentimes public events around projects. and then various document repositories and things like that. So let me go back over now. I think you're 5. Okay, perfect. All right. So just like the Hub product has a roadmap and we continue to evolve it and add features, so do our ready-to-use initiative templates. So you can see here some of the ones that are coming and we're working on now and will be delivered throughout 2019 and beyond. So the ones that we showed, we continue to evolve those like a product to continue to add enhancements, gain feedback on it. And then these would be some of the newer ones that we'll be working on. Give you a sneak peek on one that we're excited about. So promoting transparent elections, a pretty relevant topic for these times. So you get a little sneak peek about what that one would look like when it becomes available in the initiative gallery. So you can see here highlighting some sort of key KPIs around around elections and voter turnout. And then you can see some of the other aspects and kind of get an insight into what is embedded or included in this ready-to-use initiative. So finding poll locations, finding a voting center, or if you're a poll worker, understanding how to get in contact with your leadership and just manage things actually during the election time. All right, so I'll turn this back over to Brenda.
Yeah, and those initiative templates are really neat. Like Alan said, you can edit those sites. So sometimes what we've seen is actually people taking a part of an initiative template that we have and putting it into their own custom created site. So it's very much like Legos. You can put things together as you want them.
Yep.
But another...
It completely changed the topic. You could really like the design of the encourage project feedback, but repurpose it for something completely different.
Right. Which is nice if you don't have web designers. We've basically given you some nice sites that you can already...
And I don't know if I mentioned this, but just to make sure everyone's aware, so every site we build, whether it's the standard site or all of our initiative templates, built for mobile first. So all completely mobile friendly, built to work on a phone.
Mobile responsive, yep. So the other question we get is you can create your custom initiative. Alan's showing the templates. The question we get is, well, how can I make my own initiative and templatize it? Like, I'm going to do the same thing again and again and again, and I want my own template for my organization. Or I would like to create a initiative template that I can share to other organizations because I want us to operate in the same way and maybe collect data in the same way. So we have something called the Initiative Template Builder, where you can create your own initiative templates. And actually, Alan showed you a snapshot of our gallery. You could also have a gallery of initiatives for your own organization. And I'll give you an example of how this was used by the District of Columbia, Washington, D.C., is they have transportation. They have a big transportation initiative. And within that initiative, they have a lot of transportation projects. And every time they put up
300 or something.
Yeah, it's like hundreds of projects. And every time they want to spin up a project or communicate with the community about that project and how the community can comment or learn about it, they want that experience to be consistent, and they want it to have the same elements, the same type of survey, the same type of dashboard. They want that to be in the box. So they've created a template, and then anytime there's a new project, whoever is responsible for that project in the organization simply activates and uses that initiative template, fills out the content, and they're ready to go and publish that application. This is often used in a like emergency preparedness or an emergency type scenario where you constantly have some sort of emergency, natural disaster, for example, and they just keep coming. So you want to have what you need ready just to fire up to inform either the public or to organize your emergency response volunteers or whatever it is ready to go. So the use of templates is something that we see growing quite a bit. So we've talked about kind of the content aspects of initiatives for a little while. I also want to talk about the people part of it because that's really where it gets interesting, I think, in terms of what you're able to do. So when we think about community engagement and organizing folks, you usually start off with this kind of simple idea that it's going to be a small number of staff putting content together, maybe on a website, right, that goes out to the public and reaches some anonymous community members. But where we'd like to take it is kind of getting more actionable than that. You've seen some of these websites have the little follow star. So you can actually make people, or allow people to click and follow an initiative, and they become your team of followers, essentially. And now you can message to those followers. The other thing is like, okay, I have followers, but maybe I want to recruit them to be volunteers. So now imagine you have a team of volunteers that you can use your initiative content, your apps, your surveys, and those volunteers can now maybe reach a harder to reach community. Because so many times who we're trying to message to in the public, those aren't the people that are going to go to a website. You know, if you're thinking about how do I reach a homeless population, they're not going to go to a website, or those people in need are not going to go to a website. You actually have to have this person-to-person connection often. And that's where being able to organize your volunteers comes in very handy. And the other type of team we see is on the creation side. Like I said, so much of the data that fuels projects or initiatives, you don't have it. It's not all within your organization. There are partners in the community that have some aspect of that data that would give you a more complete picture. So you want to maybe have a team of close collaborators that you trust, that you're actually going to work together on something and form an internal collaboration team. And then there might be external stakeholders or internal stakeholders that need to review this content before it goes out to the public or goes out to a wider audience. So those are common teams that we're seeing when we're talking about engagement. And I just want to focus on one of these patterns that we're seeing again and again and again, and how we see how ArcGIS Hub can really, as it goes along, become a very powerful force. And that is this one, where you have a group of trusted collaborators that are helping to co-create content that then flows out to a team of volunteers, often trusted volunteers, that will go reach this hard-to-reach community. And I'll just highlight one example, although we see this again and again, and that is with the census. So if you were in the plenary, you heard the US Census talk about how it's so important to have everyone be counted. And we are working with, in California here, we're working with the state of California on their initiative to get a complete count and to reach the hard-to-count population. So today, currently, they are working with a number of collaborators, counties, cities, nonprofits, universities, to create content and start to do the research about how they're actually going to go reach that hard-to-count population. When the census is underway in 2020, they will then rely on a team of volunteers. So they've created content, they will push that out for those volunteers. And those volunteers in the local communities will then go reach the hard-to-count population and encourage them to fill out their census form. So this is a big endeavor that's underway. But you can imagine this type of scenario for many different initiatives, and we have countless examples. We could talk all day about those. But I just want to back up. So how this is made more powerful with ArcGIS Hub is that in the past, using the geospatial cloud, you might just have your internal staff with your users inside your organization. With ArcGIS Hub, we mentioned that it comes with identities for community members. So now you can add them to initiative teams, and actually they become like virtual staff to you. So consider that. You have an extension of your staff. So how do we accomplish that? Because one of the questions we get is, oh, so I have an ArcGIS Online organization. Do they become members of my ArcGIS Online organization? I don't know if I'm comfortable with that. And the answer is no, they don't. But we've made it possible so that they can work with you. And the way we do this, this is a very high-level architecture slide, is that when you get ArcGIS Hub, when you activate it, you actually get a second ArcGIS Online organization that houses the identities for your community members, and any service credits they would need to consume is in that organization. So they're kept, what I call, politely separate from your own organization, but those two talk to each other and they're connected. So your regular organization is kind of the parent organization for that other one. So let's talk about teams. So I mentioned where you have a project or an initiative that you're working on. You're used to creating a group or a team in ArcGIS Online, but you can start to make your teams in Hub as well. So you might have a homelessness initiative team or a sustainability initiative team, and you share content to that team. Well, with Hub, what's possible now is that you can invite team member or external people to be part of your initiative team. So I could have a university student help me work on the homelessness initiative or do some data science for me with data that I share with that student. Or I can have a nonprofit work on my sustainability initiative, with me, or both. Bring it all together and have people work together on these teams where you're sharing and updating content together. So that's one of the powerful aspects that we're excited about. So the question comes up, well, okay, well, what can these community users do? Well, they can do a lot of things. One of the big ones we see is that they can sign into applications, or they can sign into a website and get applications just for them. So imagine being able to gate what people can see through a website because they have identity. So they can sign in to access content and applications. They can crowdsource data for you. And I added, including the new Quick Capture app, because we saw that announced at the plenary. And that was the application where it's just big buttons. So if I'm walking along and I see something, I can click an observation. That requires a sign-in today. And those community users could sign in and gather data for you about what they're seeing. So consider that, crowdsourcing. They can perform analyses. So the community identities are a creator level, so they have a lot of capabilities, but you can always control that. So imagine inviting, like I said, that university student, that data science expert into your team and allowing them to analyze your data if you don't have that skill and perform analysis for you. They can create applications. They can attend events. We have an event calendar, an event. They can also receive notifications. So I mentioned, you have a team of followers. I consider them a team of followers, or you have your initiative team. You can send messages to those people like, hey, I have a new assignment for you. Go do this. So those are just some of the things community users can do, but we can talk about more. Those were the ones that I thought of off the top of my head. So this is kind of what some of the team aspect looks like in Hub. If you have an initiative, so let's say I have a sustainability initiative and I'm on it by myself, but there are people in my organization who I want help from, I can add members to my team. So if I click members, you can see I can either add them from the community or from my organization. I'm going to add somebody, in this case, from my organization, Sally Sitemaker, who looks like a younger version of me. Anyway, so Sally Sitemaker is really good at making sites. So I want Sally on my team because, I can do a pretty good job, but she's even better. But I like Sally, but I don't trust her to publish content. That comes up as a question. So can I have people on there but kind of control what they do? And the answer is yes. Those team members, whether they're from the community or your own team, you can always control their permissions. So if you go into your good old ArcGIS Online organization, you can control the role. And for Sally, I turned off her ability to share with the public. So sorry, Sally, you can do things for me, but you're not going to get to share it publicly. So then when Sally signs into Hub or signs into the website and edits it, she can do all this editing work, but when she's not allowed to share that content with the public. And Sally can even go make her own websites, but you'll notice under the visibility, she's missing the option to share to the public. So that's a way to leverage team members either from the community who you trust, but don't want them to publish content before you are able to vet it, or internally. So I just wanted to address that. So along the lines, wrapping up here, what do we have coming soon is one of the things we talked about having a team. What we're working on right now is the ability to have multiple teams within your initiative. So we see that you usually have a core team working on an initiative, and you might have followers, but what if I want a team of just those volunteers, or I just want my team of reviewers? That's what's coming, is that will be this ability to add a new team within your initiative, and then use this team to control the content those team members see. So I might change, control what I share to them. So I might want a survey just to go to my volunteers, and this website to be reviewed by my stakeholders. And this will be one of the ways you control the flow of content. So what you can do now, we've talked a lot of conceptual things and shown some examples. You really can just start pragmatically and move along this path. So one of the things we encourage you to do is just get started, just jump in. You have the ability today, if you have ArcGIS Online, you can start to make a site. It could be an open data site. It could be a site that you just share with a team or privately with your organization. You don't have to make them public. And then maybe start thinking about moving on to the engagement in that initiative thinking. Like maybe put a narrative around your particular type of data, or start organizing your content in a really engaging site. And then reach out to other departments. So one of the things that came up on Tuesday's customer SIG was GIS people, how do they start to engage within their organization and kind of be at the table with this initiative thinking? And some of the people that have done this, like the city of Zwolle that you saw in the plenary, or Brampton, like, what was your secret? And they said, we went to the other departments and we said, hey, how can we help you tell your story? And that really ingratiated them with others, and people were lined up the door like, oh, you can do this for me? So that's just a tip that we learned this week that I thought was super useful. And then consider how do you form some of these partnerships? Like, again, we talk about this nice triangle of government plus university plus nonprofits working together. And we're starting to see that. Alan was involved with a project with the city of LA.
There's a few instances, or several we're seeing already, of a university partnering with the local government. City of LA received a grant. National Science Foundation working with Cal State LA. To work on, co-develop with grad students initiatives that the city is focused on leveraging the city's GeoHub. Same thing's happening in Tempe and several other cities, so it's a really cool pattern.
Yeah, we're starting to see a lot of energy there. And one of the things that helps that is there's somebody in here from a university, kind of, is that universities get ArcGIS Hub included with their education site license, and nonprofits also get ArcGIS Hub included with if they have a nonprofit enterprise agreement. So, there's a lot of opportunity for you all to find each other and work together and start really getting synergies going. Because the plenary was really inspirational, and I know we've kind of talked about lofty ideas here, lofty goals, but that's kind of intentional. We want to give you a means to achieve what Jack and Jane Goodall mentioned in the plenaries. Like, come on, we have to get going. We have to work together. Yes, we can, and yes, we will. So we're trying to kind of create that ladder or that path for you to be an active player in that. So that's kind of our lofty goal.
Yep.
So.
Yeah, and also, I'll just so, and we also have resources to support you all on this. So one of them is our partner network. So more recently, or really over the last year, we've been enabling and getting our partners enabled through a specialty or certification program to support you all. You all have day jobs, there's a lot going on. And so our partners can really help with expertise in these areas. So look for these sort of trusted, specialized partners. You can see a few over there. You're probably familiar with CityWorks, Blue Raster, GIS Inc., and we'll have many, many more over the coming year and beyond. And then I'd also highlight Esri Inc. We also have our professional services team who does various jump starts and various packages and are expert in helping you with readiness assessments or actually helping support your work. And then I'll call out, there was a session yesterday done by our colleague Nick Giordano implementing ArcGIS Hub. Within that hour, he had so much content. I mean, and I believe that session would be recorded. So if you're interested in getting started, check that one out. There was so much great information on things to consider, aspects to focus on to be able to have sustained engagement. So, yeah.
Yeah, and so just to give you a little bit of a roadmap about where we're going in the next couple of quarters, we already talked about the ability to have multiple teams that we're working on now. Alan showed the elections initiative template that's coming. Another thing that we're working on is a really integrated survey workflow, because surveys are one of the primary means we see of engagement for people using Hub, and so we're just working on a really neat way to do that. You can do that today, but we're going to streamline it even further. We have something called the content library, which will be kind of a new way of viewing your content that you share either to the public or with your initiative teams. And it'll be a place where collaborators can upload their content and share it with the initiative team. So the organization of content is big on our minds. The other thing we are fleshing out toward the end of the year is more built-in messaging to teams and more options there. Adding the notion of discussions, commenting, and just more community dialogue as a tool within your initiative, and then more initiative templates. Alan showed you the list that we're working on there. So those are some of the things. Again, we've talked it to you. You may fill out your survey, and that we have like 10 minutes, 15 minutes for questions. We'd be more than happy to entertain them. So, fellow on the phone.
For Hub users in different organizations, can you invite them across? Or will, for a nonprofit, for example, would they need different hub licenses for different organizations that they were going
Okay.
into.
So the question was, if you want to collaborate with other organizations, do they always have to grab one of those community identities that come with the product, or can they use their own pre-existing organization identity? And the answer is you could do it either way. They can use their existing identity and sign in, or there's some fine points about then where would content they create live. It might live back in their organization, whereas if they use one of those community identities, then you get to capture, you as the hub owner would get to capture all of that content because it's in your environment. So there's just some trade-offs in how you want to structure it. There were some questions over here. Yeah,
You mentioned putting surveys in. Do people need to have a login in order to do a survey, or can you just put a survey that anyone?
Question is, we put surveys and initiatives a lot of time. Do people have to have an account to sign in to take the survey, or can it just be anonymous? And the answer is it can be anonymous. So you can do that today. So you could actually, with the basic capabilities you have today with online, you could go make a site, put a survey 1, 2, 3 in there, and make it anonymous. The beauty is with Hub is that some people want an identity so that they can vet the content. So that's where you get the enrichment. Gelm for it.
Okay, so if you have a volunteer, for example, who registers with your site to create a community identity, how customized is the form that they use to register? Can you have a bunch of custom fields to collect information about that volunteer?
Yes. I'm thinking about it. So the question is, could you kind of almost put like a survey in front of their, like a question, who are you in front of it? I'd have to think through exactly how we would do it.
So we have a configurable,
Yeah.
the sign-in experience can be branded, and it's something we worked on just in June. You can configure the sign-in experience where it's your logo, your messaging. Community users sign up with email or Facebook and Google. And then at that point, you could have a survey that they take to capture more information. At a minimum, always you'll get their email, their name, and understand and be able to contact them and reach out in that, or via Google or Facebook, you'd get the same information. So that's a way you could engineer it. It's interesting though.
Yeah, we've actually seen our fellow colleagues in the UK have an example where they have people fill out a survey 1, 2, 3 to, like, I want to become a volunteer for whatever organization. They fill out the survey. They kick off a workforce or
a task to them.
Task that then notifies somebody, do you want to approve this person, yes or no? And then when they do, then that person gets in it. So there's several ways you could do it. What's that?
So my follow-up to that would be, so if they fill out that survey 1, 2, 3 form, then there's no way, I don't think, that they can go back and edit those values. So if somebody has certain skills, for
Yes.
example, and then they get more skills, they wouldn't be able to put in updates, or would they?
Yeah, so you're actually getting at something that I didn't put on our roadmap that we're looking at. So we have this notion in mind of a profile, and today it's a very light profile, like username and that. But we will be building out on our roadmap a robust profile where you can capture your skills. And then, this is getting way into the roadmap, we imagine, think about your hub and thinking about having these virtual employees. If you could see where they are, location-wise, what skills, this is what the census is doing. This is actually what we're doing with the state. Here are the people, here are the skills they have. Now I need to marshal people who speak this language to go reach this hard to count.
CPR certified.
You could actually kind of say, filter your volunteers, task them, that's where we're going. Yeah, we're on the same page with you, and so our first step will be kind of building out that profile, and then as part of that, you can come in and edit that profile, and then I imagine being able to filter on those attributes, create subsets, message that subset. But that's
They have a
what we're
basic,
thinking. We're going to be building it out.
They have a basic profile today. It's a sort of a bio picture, somewhat personalized today, some understanding, and we'll continue to.
But you could use. There probably need to think through how we would use a survey 1, 2, 3 today to create those attributes that you could filter on. But we are working. That's absolutely where we want to go. Is, like I always call them, your minions, and how can you control your minions? Yes. Sorry, you've had your hand up for a long time.
Does a lot of this stuff, does this extend to ArcGIS Enterprise, or is it just specifically for ArcGIS Hub?
The identities and more of the engagement tools are only specific to Hub and the online environment. The ability to create a site is a shared capability that is with Enterprise. So you can create a site, but there's no notion of like, identities for the community at that point. Yeah, or an events system or some of that. So online, Hub Online has a lot more capability. Yes, hello?
So I saw that you had your content
Right.
The best thing that Hub has done for our organization is actually documents, be able to share like meeting minutes and policy documents and things like that in a really intuitive way. But I noticed in the library they're not there. Do you have plans to incorporate
They
everything?
should be. They should be. There is, if I go to a search, I'll do it in a second. If you go search somebody's, so the question is, and thank you for the point, that it's not just about sharing data or applications. You can actually share documents and other things. And I actually have a hub site of hub sites where I'm just basically using a hub site to shift other URLs to other people's hubs. I've created a hub of hubs. So there's a lot you can do on these pages. So thanks for bringing that up. And the question is, in your search, if you go to look at all the content in an organization, those documents should show up.
Maybe some aren't public, or maybe some are still private, or
yeah, well, we can take a look at it. And actually, if you go to somebody's search catalog, like if I were to go to DC's or Brampton's, you would see we actually have what we call, it was one blank because I was going to say the word, not categories, but we actually have facets of kind of at the top that
filters,
it's like filters, I'm escaping the word. But it's usually data initiative. You saw me do it a little bit, data initiatives, documents, maps, and apps. So we'll have to go look and see if it's there. So. More questions? Fellow in the gray right back there.
So obviously this is all public facing, doing community engagement. What's your Section 508 compliance roadmap look like? So your VPAT for version 1 is a year old, and you have partial compliance and some keyboard accessibility items. So what's the goal to get us to 100% compliant?
Right. So the question is about
accessibility
and WCAG, the standards and things that are coming out. I believe we have a refresh of that. I'm surprised it's not out. I'll investigate that because we talk a lot about accessibility, and there is actually an accessibility expert on our team when we do design. So when we're doing the application design itself, the administrative experience, we're very cognizant of accessibility. When we do our site templates, we review those to make like that default site template accessible. Some things are built into the application, so when you upload an image, it gives you a chance for alternative text so that screen readers can use it. We're putting out resources. There is
screen readers. We support all that. So our default sites and our ready-to-use templates are all meet accessibility standards beyond the U.S. I think we're nearing what Canadian sort of standards again are. We can get you those details.
But so another thing we're doing is we're putting, here's the challenge is the flexibility of creating sites, you can do things like I'm going to put white text on a white background, and that's the flexibility there. But we've created more kind of a documentation and blogs and a list of resources about how to check your sites for that. I have some ideas from this conference talking about people that I'm keen to explore. But yeah, I'll have to dig into that. So thank you for bringing it up because we know we have been looking to do new reviews, and I thought we've done a new review recently, and we do have an expert on staff. I know accessibility is a huge, huge issue. So yeah, that's what I've rambled on about it. But can I have another questions over here?
Real quick, you said that this is tied into ArcGIS Online, right?
Yes.
And if the public comes in and creates an account, it's a creator level.
Yes.
Who's picking up the fee for that license level?
So the question, this is built on ArcGIS Online, and creators and credits all apply to those community members. So that's a separate license. So that's why we've divided Hub into basic, where you have a lot of the capabilities, but when it comes time where you want to engage the community, that's where we have a premium license that you, as a customer, would pay for. So there's different licensing about how many, do you want an unlimited community? We have licensing levels for that, or do you want to kind of pay as you go? Gee, I only need 1,000, let me just pay for 1,000. So that is part of the subscription for Hub, but it is super reasonable. So don't be taking the creator price in your mind and multiplying it. We've actually accounted for the fact that most of those community members will do simple things like take a survey, and they're not going to be doing heavy duty things. They're only going to be coming to your site, maybe following it. So we've priced that accordingly for those community members. So it's actually super, super, super affordable for them. So we can talk pricing offline if you want. So yes, back there.
So if you have a ELA, does that include the premium, or is that also?
So if you have an ELA, does this include the Hub Premium? And the answer is no, it does not, but you get a discount for having an EA or an ELA. So there's a discounted price for it. Yes. There were questions? Or feel free to come ask them off mic, and we'll be happy to answer them. And we have a booth downstairs staffed with people who know a lot too. So.
Thank you all.